welcome to another edition of Girls Talk 9.0, where we candidly talk about the movie pick of the week and occasionally the topic du jour. Today, we're going to talk about the 2022 horror film Pray for the Devil, directed by Daniel Sam. My name is Waiting Hollow. With me, the notorious note taker, Nanya. Hey, girl.
Hey.
And we have the sensational Sunchild. What's up?
Hello.
Hello. So someone just had a birthday and someone's having a birthday coming up. So happy belated and happy upcoming birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Coming.
All right. Well, so what is this film about? Again, this is a Pray for the Devil. This film is about a nun. Her name is Sister Anne, who is attending this school and nursing facility, kind of as a nursing aide. And this particular school, they opened these schools, according to the movie, in 2018 when there were more and more reportings of possessions. And so they decided outside of the Vatican that they would open more of these schools where they would teach these priests how to, I guess, the practice of exorcism, if you will. And so this professor, I'm sorry, Sister Anne, the professor notices that Sister Anne seems to attract some sort of being. And he also notices that she has a gift, if you will. And so he offers to train her, although it is unethical or unheard of at the time that there are any female nuns participating in this. So he offers to train her. In parallel, she befriends this young girl, Natalie, whose mother has brought her to this place. It's like a school / nursing home. I'm not sure what to call it.
Prison.
Yeah.
So they bring her to this place, and Sister Anne befriends her. And as the story unfolds, we kind of later understand the relationship between the nun and the little girl. So that's it in pretty much the nutshell. Who wants to kind of go first?
I'll go first if you want.
Sure.
Yeah. I loved it. I was terrified. I did see it in the movies because I'm a moviegoer, and I did watch it again last night, in fact, so that I would be kind of refreshed from the whole thing. I found it terrifying. I think it's definitely something to see if you're looking to be scared. There were some parts that, I don't know, maybe could have been omitted, but I like the plot. I like the storyline. It made sense for me. Even in the beginning, it started out terrifying. The mother banging her head on the door was terrifying to me. I'm like, somebody's doing that. I would think, I mean, my first thought was like a child with issues, anger issues or other issues, but an adult doing that and you're the child behind the door had to be terrifying for her. I did like that you didn't know the whole story until it went along. I know we like to take it piece by piece, and I go all over the place, but I'll try to go from the top. You could tell that the sisters were not happy that she was allowed in the training. Is it, we're going to call it training? What are we calling it? Lectures on exorcism, whatever we're going to call it. We can tell a lot of people. You can tell the men in there weren't happy to see her in there either. But, you know, you have a gift, you have a gift. So I found it interesting that even in that realm of nun, men, you know, fathers, mothers, the whole thing, she still stood her ground. She stood her ground. She wasn't afraid to go and be accepted. And even though she knew, I mean, it had to be, I would think it had to be difficult. She didn't have a good, healthy upbringing. I want to say good, healthy upbringing with her mother. And then she's thrown into this world where now, once again, she's like the outsider. But she has a gift and she seems to embrace that gift. I don't want to cut too far ahead, but the scene, it is kind of like a nursing home right? Because she's caring for that elderly man, which is why I know all over the place. I'm so excited about it because I found you can tell I'm excited. So many scenes were terrifying to me, but she's washing the old man's back, like a CNA basically. And then he starts humming that song that her mother would hum. And I was in the IV is filling up with blood. I mean, I was terrified at so many parts of this movie. I was like, I had to like pause it a couple of times because I'm like, I gotta turn the lights on. I gotta turn the lights on. I was afraid, but I thought it was really well done. I really did think it was well done. I don't want to go too far ahead because I know you like to break it down. I thought it was really well done, especially that was like one of my favorite terrifying parts. The lights flickering. I mean, he lifted her clear off the ground. He's dancing with her, and he's that tongue coming out of his mouth. I mean, I was terrified. I was terrified. I was terrified. It was so scary to me. It was high on my list of scary.
Okay. I'll go next. I actually liked it too. It was similar to others in a lot of ways, but I did like the twist regarding the relationship between the nun and the young girl. And I'm not sure if I've seen this type of movie where they introduce this formal training of exorcism with priests. So I thought that was interesting. And then on the flip side, they had the psychologist who was trying to not, she's just, I guess, trying to show both sides of the story, right? Because there's always this debate about whether or not it's psychological or whether or not it's a real possession. And so I thought it was interesting that they kind of had the psychology teacher and they do a evaluation on all of the patients before they quote perform the exorcism. So I thought that was interesting. There were definitely a lot of good jump scares, and I thought the acting was good. The movie moved along at a good enough pace. I felt though at some point it was starting to get a little long, but I do think they did a good job with it. So I did like it.
The acting was good.
For me, it was mid, but nothing too bad. I agree that there was some really good. Not there were a few jump scares that got me. I did feel overall though that it was. I felt like it was the same movie over and over again. I feel like we've seen this movie 100 times. They did try to put some twists in there, and I do appreciate that. I give them an A for effort for trying to throw some twists in there. But I didn't feel like the twists were sufficient enough for me to feel like it was new. It just felt very repetitive. And so for that reason, it was just middle of the road for me. But not bad, just not great either.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's start from the top like we always do. I think Sunshine kind of talked about the opening scene where we have young Anne is in her room praying, and her mom starts to knock on the door very lovingly, like, and Anne continues to pray because she doesn't know which mom she's going to get. And the mom gets more and more frustrated. She starts knocking on the door and then she starts banging her head on the door. And honestly, I thought that was the creepiest thing on the planet. Like, please don't do that. Please don't bang on my door like that. Because
Scary.
as a child, can you imagine? There's not enough prayer in the world for me. Like, I just don't know what I would do. I just don't know what I would do. I would never open that door again. I'd probably starve in that room. Like, it was too much. Too
It was
much.
scary. It was very scary. And seeing it from like a child's eye, like I was scary as an adult, but I can't envision like how that would have to be as a child. So was her life like on a daily basis? The things that I didn't see.
Right. Yeah,
I
yeah.
yeah. All right, it might be too soon to go down this path, so keep going.
Yep, yep. But so they go from there to where Anne, whatever you want to call her, is now a nun, and she's at this school, and she's sitting with the therapist because all the nuns, everyone has to go through this therapy session, and that's where we find out that her mom is somewhat schizophrenic. Somewhat, I guess you can't be somewhat schizophrenic. Either you are or you're not. So we find out that her mom is schizophrenic, and I think maybe the prayer, Annie praying was what was triggering the mom, making her more and more mad because later she says something like the reason why the spirit wanted her was because she was the quote innocent one, or I don't know, faithful one. I don't know what term she used, but So we find out that at that point that Anne's mom, was schizophrenic. And Anne recalls times where, her mom would come to the room very lovingly and comb her hair. And then there are other times where she'd come in and she'd hum the song that Sunchild referenced earlier, and then she started like squeezing her head, which is also like that was a bit much too.
Yeah.
But despite all of that, Anne felt that her mom was incapable of hurting her and blamed it all on the fact that she was being possessed. What do you guys think of
Wait a
that?
minute, possessed or schizophrenic? You just said that she was diagnosed, her mom was diagnosed as schizophrenic.
Yes, but Anne
And
felt that
thought
there was
that,
something else. She always
okay,
felt
yeah.
there was something else. And so, because the psychiatrist was saying, well, that's pretty traumatic for a child, and your mom was schizophrenic. And Anne was like, she was diagnosed as schizophrenic, but I believe there was something more. And because she said, I don't think my mom was capable of hurting me. I think it was something else. I think it was whatever was possessing her, what was making her do what she was doing. You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that goes to show what they were like, that psychiatrist is there to show the other side of it, because some people don't believe in maybe evil or possession, and some people do want to claim it on like a chemical imbalance of schizophrenia. But I do believe, because Anne was faithful, and I feel like she had that like ability to know that her mother was not schizophrenic but was possessed. I don't think I believed Annie. I believed Annie. I believe that she knew her mother better than these psychiatrists who already have, they're there to show the other side. I don't think they believe in possession. But religion and schizophrenia together.
That's what I was going to say. I was actually kind of, this part piqued my interest because I do think that schizophrenia is about the closest thing to possession symptoms that we, would normally see. And I didn't think that the psychiatrists, the psychologists, whatever they were anti-possession theorists, because they wouldn't have been in the church or part of the church if they were. But I think they simply know that sometimes when people come in, they exhibit symptoms. Sometimes it is possession, sometimes it isn't. So I thought that was okay, and I didn't view them as being the opposite. I was kind of more interested in whether or not she was schizophrenic. As it turns out, we'll find out later whether she was or wasn't. But at that point, I was intrigued because, like I said, I think that there's a lot of schizophrenic symptoms which mimic uh, supernatural things, right? I mean, they're always hearing things, they're seeing things. And even if you talk to somebody who's schizophrenic, regardless of your religious beliefs, it's scary. So even schizophrenics are scary, and the ones who have, really severe schizophrenia. So I found that part really, really interesting, and I thought, oh, this will be interesting to see how the movie handles it. But they shut that down pretty quickly. So
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, agreed. I maybe I phrased that wrong. They're not exactly there to discount possession, but they are there, I think, to show that there's schizophrenia and there's possession. They don't want you to label everything as a possession.
right.
Right.
I mean, this was 2018 or whatever year it was supposed to be, and they're in Boston, so they're going to have a little bit of science and religion mixed in, and I think that makes sense because I'm sure, like I said, there's like people who have weird symptoms to make you question what's happening,
right?
Without it actually, getting to the point of it being a possession or anything like that.
What do you think the relevance of 2018 was? Was there any relevance to that? I mean, is it just that people were starting to report it more because it was more acceptable, or because I do believe, before, I mean, maybe if you were possessed before, people were like, just walk it off. But now, you label everything. So was maybe 2018 a time when we were starting to label things more and people were reporting it? Like, I didn't know the relevance of 2018.
I didn't think there was any relevance, but I definitely wouldn't say that anybody thought in the past, oh, just walk off being possessed. I have no idea why they suddenly said that there was a surge in demonic possessions that were reported to the Catholic Church. I have no idea. They didn't delve into that, and that would have been kind of interesting to explain why has there been a surge in these reported cases. I have no idea, and I don't feel like they gave any explanation that was sufficient.
Right. Agree.
Okay, well then there's a scene where, well, we get introduced to two of her patients anyway. There's Natalie, the young girl, and then the older man, Clark. And she goes and she visits them both. She gives Natalie her candy and she gives Clark his applesauce. And then they show a scene where she's sitting in her room and she's combing her hair, flashing, having flashbacks about her mom combing her hair. And then she sees a reflection in the window. And then she sees shadows of feet under her door. Do you guys, do you know who the shadow was in the window or the reflection? Was it the little girl or was it her mom?
Wait, you're saying when she was combing her hair as an adult?
As an adult, it was just right after this scene where she goes to the therapist and she meets, and then she introduces us to the two patients, where she's feeding him the applesauce. Then she's on her own. She goes back to her room and she's just sitting there in the mirror and she's combing her hair, and she's kind of having a flashback of, the comb which she kept, her mom's comb, or the comb that her mom used. And she has a flashback to where her mom was like, having one of her moments, if you will, where you know, she's got the hair over her face and she's pulling the hair out of her head. And then she kind of looks up and there's a reflection in the window.
I assumed it was her mom, but I don't know, right?
I thought it was her mom, but I thought the shadow of feet that she saw the little girl.
Yeah. They never really, I don't know who, you never saw who the shadow, because she went out the door and there was no one there. It was dark. And of course the shadow or the reflection went away. So I'm not sure who it was either. But then the next day she's doing her rounds and she starts hearing this whispering, and then you start hearing it. What sounded like baby crying. I wasn't sure it was baby cat crying or cat meowing. But you hear this noise in the hallway, and that's when Natalie kind of creeps up on her and tells her about this nugget candy bar, like what's in it.
Oh yeah.
Which is weird because they're all locked in their room, so I'm not sure how she actually got out. But that's one of those typical, jump scares where you're looking one way and all of a sudden you turn around and there's someone there. It's one of the typical jump scares I think that Nunya was kind of talking about, that we've seen it 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then of course she hears more weird voices, but this one happens to be coming from one of the lectures. So she kind of sneaks into the lecture where they're showing a possession of a young girl on the screen. I thought it was interesting that the professor talks about the stages of possession, if you will. I don't know the stages, but you go from, I guess bad because you're possessed to worse, where at the end they think that it gets so bad that you're close to terminal. They call it terminal, and I guess at that point there's no cure, there's no turning back. But they kind of talked about these stages of possession, which I thought was interesting. Which I guess is kind of like, if you think about, what's that movie that we watched where the two girls were possessed, they went out into the woods.
The Exorcist beginning.
Yeah, what was it? The Exorcist something?
I don't remember what this, I think it was The Exorcist beginning or something like that, but it was the Exorcist movie.
Or something.
Believer,
Yeah.
a believer, Exorcist believer.
They went through stages there too. I mean, I guess there are stages to possession. I don't know. I mean, I think you're screwed if you're possessed, period. So it doesn't matter what stage you're in. Who wants to be in that frame of mind?
That whole thing, I don't know. As I was watching this movie, and I'm a bit of a cynic, and I don't know, and I'm a critic, of course, but those scenes of the classroom training on possession, all I kept thinking to myself is, based on all the movies we've seen, if the only thing that's saving us are these priests, you're in trouble. You're just in trouble. Because every single movie we have seen, the minute the priest sees somebody who's actually possessed, if they fall apart, they pretty much crumble into tears and snot. It's just like Yeah, and I'm thinking to myself, you'd be better off like I feel like a soccer mom would handle it better than a priest. Like if their child was getting flown around a room, the mother would come in and like the mother bear would come out and they'd be like, ugh, get out of my child. The priests are just like shaking. And I'm like, what kind of faith do you have that you're the scariest person in the room? You're scariest, not the scariest, you're the most afraid person in the room.
Mm.
You're the scariest person in the room. It just doesn't make any sense. So and they were
Okay.
going through the phases. I was thinking, you're already screwed if you have to call a Catholic priest because they are not going to help you.
Yeah, I have to agree. They
Yeah,
have
That's why
throw some holy water at you, put a cross up. That's it. That's what you have to offer.
you never see. I can envision, being in training for emergency. Sadly, in this day and age, everyone is in training for an emergency situation. Elementary schools, everyone. But when it actually happens, I could imagine that, you have that, but you have to get fight or flight. You have to reach the level of fight or flight and you have to go back to your training. But I don't feel like the priests ever get there. And I can imagine that it's, different from running from an active shooter or something of that nature, because that's another person. Whereas this is a demonic entity and who knows what they can do next. But they don't seem to ever get to the fight part. they do, like you said, they throw the water, they put the cross up. They if they had a bit of courage or like faith behind that, it might be a little more scarier for the demon. But they're doing it, they're like hiding and shaking. And I mean, I don't think I would be too afraid of him at this point either, because he doesn't look like he even wears his faith. Not in that moment, that's for sure. Not in that moment.
That's what I was thinking.
Sorry, it takes us to the scene that Sunchild mentioned earlier, right? Where they go in to see Natalie because she's getting to stage 2. I'm calling it stage 2 just because, where she kind of had these episodes, and so they're locked in a room, and she's, quote, I guess, really possessed at this point. And to you guys' point, right? You have all these priests, they're gonna come on in, and the teacher's telling them, look, the devil knows your darkest secrets. You have to have faith. You have to stand strong. You have to. He goes in the room and gets his ass drug under the bed. It's like, are you kidding me? You're the professor and you can't even deal with this? And why are they always so unprepared? I'm not just bringing a Bible and holy water. I'm bringing a windable flashlight because we know the lights are always going to go off. I'm bringing a baseball bat. Like, at what point are you going to come prepared? We're not talking about going in there and taming a kitten. You know it's the devil. Get your shit together. You know what I'm saying?
Like, you need some weapons.
That's why I like.
Cross would be hanging from everywhere, the front, back. When my back is turned, you still see a cross. When I'm on the side, you still see a cross. Like on my forehead, they're everywhere. Why are you not prepared at this point?
Yeah.
That's how I felt. Like I gave up at that point. I'm like, here we go again. I feel like the faith, the people in the movies who tend to be the ones who actually confront the demon are never the priests. And I agree. There's no amount of training that's going to supplant faith. No. If you go in and you truly have faith, this is something that that God is with you. And you actually believe God is with you.
Right.
There's nothing we saw that was scary enough to make us run. So why are you as a priest doing this? And like I said, they walk in the room and they just turn into a puddle of fear. Like, why? So what's the point of the classroom training? Just to teach you that there's possession? You're not learning anything. How about you pick the most faithful people? And I was thinking, they made a big deal about, finally a woman. Well, maybe the women are the one with the faith. Maybe you should have been, maybe the reason all you people are cowards, you excluded half of the population. Right. Maybe those old 90-year-old nuns in the back of that convent are the ones you need to have in there.
Right.
My eyes were like in the back of my head. I was like, here we go again.
Mine too.
I feel like her possession happened really quickly though. I mean, she went from eating the nougat candy to just, I mean, I know they have to, speed it up. But I didn't see it. I knew it was coming, but I didn't see it coming in the transition in the movie. It was like she was okay, and then she was possessed. I mean, I don't know.
I,
I didn't realize why they picked her until later.
well, to me, I was like, she clearly is far gone because you have her in a basement by herself. You got no parents around, no guardians around. You have taken a young girl, a 10-year-old girl, and you have stuck her in a basement in a church with glass everywhere, and you're staring at her through a window. She was clearly far gone.
Right. Yeah.
She wasn't spewing the split pea soup yet, but she was clearly far gone. If you took her out of her family, out of her environment, and stuck her in a basement as a prisoner, to me it was like, yeah, you know that she's pretty far gone. And now you also know that the devil is manipulative. I've only watched movies and I know that.
I mean, I found the possession of the older man that she was caring for terrifying. I really did.
That was terrifying.
Terrifying. I was terrified. You know, he's physically able to be stronger than her anyway. I mean, I know the devil is using his body and he has superhuman strength as it is. But the way he just lifted her up, he's dancing around, it's like mocking her in her faith. The whole scene was terrifying to me. It really was. It was more terrifying than the girl climbing up the wall backwards, which is normally the time that I freak out. That is normally the sign for me. I don't know what it is about this like backwards crawl up the wall and hanging from the ceiling that just freaks me out. But to me, the possession of the male patient was more terrifying to me. I mean, it was terrifying. Was that tongue, I think.
Yeah. It was more terrifying to me too because it was subtle and less predictable. The back crab walking, we've seen it a million times. Like I said, every priest should walk in there knowing they're going to do a back bend and they're going to go up the wall. Like that's what you know. But you wouldn't be expecting that if you're just cleaning a patient's feet, that they'd be humming a song your mother hummed to you as a young child. That would be more terrifying than all the other stuff that you should be expecting.
Yeah, it was terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. So that I did love that scene with the, that. And of course, and meanwhile, the priests are all like watching the videotape. I mean, these little, what is the word? These voyeurs, right? They like to sit in the little in the command center and look through the glass, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he really was possessed. Look at how he swung her around the room." They're like looking.
Yep.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah, look in the yellow pages for somebody before you go running out to a church if somebody's possessed, because the priest ain't helping you.
Yeah, you might be better off.
Busters, somebody other than them.
Okay,
and then so at this point, so we've gone through the old guy and his issue, and so because the professor has told Annie that Natalie is close to the end, she doesn't want to believe that, so her and the other priests deceptive, and they go and they convince this nun to leave the library so she can go in and watch a bunch of films, footage of other possessed people, I guess, that have come through this school, just so that she could see if anyone was released. And she did see a video of one woman that was actually, I'm not cured if that's the right word, but I'm going to use it, was actually cured. And the reporter asks her something about, how does it feel to be cured or whatever. And for some reason, she pulls off this prosthetic on her nose. It was just so odd. But I think you guys remember that scene? Yeah, but I think what Annie got out of that is because the woman felt guilty that she survived. And so because she survived, she self-mutilated herself, which is, I don't get that, but
I hadn't realized that makes sense. That's why she did it. I wasn't clear as to why she did that prosthetic type thing.
Yeah,
but that makes sense.
Yeah. I guess that's the PTSD that you suffer if you successfully get out of a possession, you still feel guilt. And this is the way this girl, I don't know, this is what she did when she felt the guilt. She felt the need.
Why would anyone feel guilt? That made no sense at all.
None.
It's like, oh, I'm possessed, and you now have exorcised the demon from me, and I have survivor guilt. What? What?
No,
That makes no sense on the planet.
no sense, but yeah, that's what, I don't know.
And it makes no sense that the church is like, okay, well, these are the terminal possessed people, so let's just stick them in the basement. There's nothing that can be done about them. They just have to die. Well, how about maybe you don't know everything? How about you take them out of the basement, you put them back in the hospital and see if somebody else can help them because you have given up.
Yeah.
It just was, it's not possible if you have faith that you believe. Like the little bit of faith that I have, I don't believe that anybody has terminal possession. I believe if you believe in God, anything's possible and you can get it out of it. The fact that they just keep dismissing people and now you're making them feel guilty when you exorcise the demons.
Yeah.
It was just stupid. There's so much
Yeah.
stupidity in this little segment of it that it was like you're just stretching it.
Yeah, they stretched it. They did stretch it. I lived for the jump scares and the scary.
Yeah. And they excelled at that, but the explaining and trying to justify, it's like, just quit it. Stop trying to justify it. Stop trying to explain it. You don't have to have 4 stages of possession. Just make it a fun little scary movie and call it a day.
Right.
Right.
Anyway,
Let me move on. This priest's sister. So I'm just going to jump back a little bit. So when Natalie was on the floor drawing, things, she drew a picture which this priest felt was his sister. Out of all the people in the world, she drew a black and white sketch of a pregnant woman, and somehow he thought it was his sister. I think this picture is for me. So he convinces Annie to go to exorcise his sister because she is possessed, right? She's the one who had gotten pregnant via rape and lost the baby, I believe.
Lost the
Yeah.
baby.
And so during that scene, we find out that Annie also had a baby at a young age that she gave up to the nunnery, not foster care, but to the nuns, because I guess that's where she was a runaway, and I guess that she ran to the convent, and they probably took the baby. I don't know how all that works, but that's what it seems like happened. But anyway, this priest convinced Annie to go and perform an exorcism on his sister. I do believe that that scene where her stomach was growing, that was gross AF. I was like, oh my God, stop. It just looked like it was about to burst, and I just did not want to see the insides. Like,
It was gross. It was more gross than scary, actually.
yeah, I was like, please don't show me.
It made sense to me that the priest thought the drawing was of his sister, right? Because they thought that the sister was possessed because she had the abortion and therefore was sinning in the eyes of the church. So when he saw that, he thought, huh?
I thought she lost the baby.
She did.
Well, did she lose the baby? Or did she have an abortion?
He said she lost the baby, but I don't know how pregnant she was. The picture made her look real pregnant, but who knows?
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, then I'm not sure either. I don't know either. But I think to me, it wasn't that weird that he thought it was related to his sister because his sister was pregnant.
Right.
He sees her drawing a picture of a sister, and he thinks, oh, this is related to my sister who happens to be possessed. Right. So wouldn't that make sense if your sister was pregnant and possessed and a girl was drawing a picture of a possessed girl was drawing a picture of a pregnant woman, you might think it was somehow related to you.
Oh, for sure.
No, I would not touch the picture because I certainly would. If that it is the case, I don't want any of that shit transferring to me. So
too late. Too late. Your sister's possessed.
Yeah, true.
Too late. Your sister is possessed. So whatever's happening is already in your family. So to me, it was like, okay. But again, where's this person's faith? He's like, listen, even though I'm the one who's been trained, even though I'm the male who has the privilege of being trained, guess what? Right. I'm terrified to go in and confront this demon that I think possessed my sister. So, hey, how about you sneak in there with me and help me? Where is his faith? Thank God Anne went with him because she was willing to at least fight this, the demon and the sister. It seemed to be at the time successful, but then we find out later she wasn't. Or maybe she was successful, and who knows, maybe the sister felt guilty and decided, let me kill myself because, how dare I survive possession?
Correct. That survivor guilt, like you mentioned earlier. And, that's the second time Annie was reprimanded, right? The first time she was reprimanded by the nuns for going into the classroom, and now she's reprimanded by everyone, the priest, the professor, the whatever the other guy is called, the eminent or whatever they call him. And so they kick her back. Well, she says, I'm going to go back to the covenant. So she goes back, and um, that's when I kind of thought, because the priest comes and he says, oh, by the way, no, I'm sorry. Before the priest comes, the psychiatrist visits her, gives her a book on how to rebuild yourself. And she says, oh, by the way, not Annie, Natalie was released. And so Annie feels good. And at that point, I was like, good, the movie's done. But it wasn't, because the priest then comes and says, here, I have something for you, because he's trying to get her to come back. Natalie relapsed. We need your help. And she's like, no, look, you guys need to figure it out. But of course, they don't want to, because he presents to her a necklace. And we find out that that's the necklace that Annie gave her baby before she had to give it up, which leads me to believe that, I don't know how, maybe where she was exactly where, it just seems odd that where she gave the baby up is exactly where Natalie ended up, but I don't know. Maybe it's just odd to me, but 15 years later, or 12 years later, it seems odd that.
I definitely thought it was odd, but I also felt like that was the whole plot. Like, this girl was going to be possessed, so the devil positioned it for her to be there. And I mean,
that makes sense. Yeah, that makes
when
sense.
she had said she had a child, it didn't dawn on me that this would be the child until the necklace. And I was like, oh, why didn't I think of that?
Well, because we didn't know about the necklace, right? That just came. Right. Nobody saw the necklace. It wasn't on the baby's neck when we saw her giving it over to the nun.
Right.
But somehow, that's what.
Yeah. I mean, like, in retrospect, I was like, well, she did have like this little connection with her sneaking her candy, which I'm sure they're not really supposed to have. I mean, I don't even know how she got it. They don't really get out much. But I felt like she had like somewhat of a connection, but it also might have just been her mothering someone, because her mother didn't really, wasn't able to really give her that. So I didn't really connect that was going to end up ultimately being her daughter.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't connect with her because it's her job. That was her job, to make the patients feel welcome and safe. And so giving a kid candy, I mean, that's.
I know. Yeah, we're in the book of possessions. Is that a problem?
Yeah.
Where in the book of possessions is that a problem? Locking the big child in the basement by itself, not a problem. But God forbid you give them a Snickers.
No nougats. No nougats.
No nougats. No nougats. Yeah, it just, I don't know. I did, I kind of, we were getting the sense that was her child, right? And so the minute we found out that she had a baby, it was like, that's got to be her child.
Yeah, of course.
I lived for the jump scares.
Yeah.
I lived for the jump scares. Especially, I found seeing it the first time in the movie and just seeing it as a moviegoer, not like a critic, I enjoyed it more. Like, having to break it down, you definitely enjoy it a little less. So, but yeah, there's a lot of jump scares, and
Annie ends up going back to save Natalie, and we see that Annie gets possessed. And of course, that same priest is there running around like a chicken with his head. Like, how do you get luck? You can't get the key in. Maybe I'll be shaken up a little bit, but trust me, I'm getting that key in there.
How to get in? Yeah, it took a long time to get the key. I'm like, you haven't opened it yet. Like, all this stuff is happening to her, and he's not. Like, is he watching it? I don't know. But I'm like, what he's not doing is looking for the hole in the key. Even with his shaking, you can't get that thing in there. It took him forever to unlock the gate.
And like, why is it that, I'm going to run over and I'm certainly going to get the little girl before the adult, because, she's an adult, she can take care of herself. You don't have to tell me to run. Like, the minute you separate, I'm out. I'm taking your kid and we are running. So
right.
You don't have to do that. So there'd be no way I'd be stuck in that room.
Well, he had to go to class for that. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what they teach in those classes.
They get there. They didn't get there yet. That was session
That was
11.
yeah. Either that or he was absent that day, right?
That, something. Like it was just, and then the holy water. It looked like it was about 6 inches, and all of a sudden it was 60 feet. It's like, what?
Yeah, it definitely grew.
Well, I was thinking, why are we hoarding the holy water? To your point earlier about, I'm not walking in with the vial of holy water this big.
Yeah, 60
right?
feet downstairs.
Exactly. I'm walking in with a super soaker.
You got a whole basement.
If holy water is just water that's blessed, we can get more holy water. Like, just use it all up. Why are we being so stingy?
Yeah, I agree.
They should make it rain in there for sure. Put it in the sprinklers and just turn them on. You know what I mean? You got
to
be that easy, right? Then you can do it from the tower. You can look through the window, turn on like those like the sprinklers in the room.
That's it.
Just eliminate the devil that way. But no, that would be too easy.
Yeah.
No. And you know what? Don't throw a little bit of holy water on me. Like I said, throw me in the pool. Do something more than just sprinkling some water, because you might not get to me. It might
might miss you
there. Like, I don't want to play that game.
Yeah.
I'm possessed. Give me a lot of water if water is the key. Maybe that's why it's not working. Bigger vial. Like, have they thought about that? The 2 fluid ounces isn't working. Try something a little bigger. Try 12 ounces.
I don't know. The whole thing, I will tell you, when I was watching this last night, like I said, it was not a horrible movie. They did a fine job. It had plenty of little jump scares. It just felt like exhausting in the sense that, we've been here so many times before, when are they going to, when are we going to see something different? Or is there just nothing different to see? And so the genre has just been, exploited enough that there's really nothing new under the sun. But, then occasionally we'll see a good movie that shows that there's still some potential there. But the whole time all I kept thinking was, what does this devil want? Right? Why all this? Like, why all this? This is just so much effort. It just is. And all I kept thinking was, gosh, this is just so much work. And to your point, like, why can't they make things simpler? Why not go in prepared? Why not actually think about what you're doing? But no, they don't want to do any of that. It's almost like, are you sure there's more possessions being reported, or is this a new business that the church is involved in and you're making money off of it? What's the goal here? Because I didn't understand what the devil's purpose is, right? Why ruin lives one single person at a time? I mean, that is, I guess, how lives get ruined. But if you have all this almighty power, it just seems like there'd be some easier ways to go about it than always targeting a 10-year-old girl.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's nothing about the movie. It's me. I'm over it. I feel like if I never see another little demonic possession movie for the rest of 2025, honestly, I'm good with it. I've just seen too many of them. Sorry.
Well, I guess the good thing out of all this is that Anna did get a fellowship at the Vatican.
Well, I did.
And she cured herself, right? The priest couldn't actually exorcise the demon. She had to do it herself by flinging herself into the water, drowning herself practically, because they couldn't do it.
I did find the last scene terrifying.
Yeah.
In the cab.
Is she still in Boston, or is she in Rome?
I thought she was in Boston still.
Boston too, but I don't know.
But it was terrifying. I kept waiting. When you're looking, and it's always like you see someone and then the camera cuts away and they're gone. I kept waiting for this person to be gone, and she wasn't. And then when she was right there, and the guy, the taxi driver, the reflection in the mirror was different. Like, his eyes were looking at her, but he was looking down. And I was like, oh, this is freaky. That was so freaky to me. I love the closing scene. It does lend for a part 2 to come, as you can see. You know what I'm saying? They opened it up for, Pray the Devil 2. So I'll be waiting for that to come out, and probably go see it, just because I love horror movies. But that was one of the best scenes of the movie. I was terrified. the lock's closing. She's trapped in there. This lady with those crazy eyes is outside. The taxi driver is clearly, was it the old man? Because it kind of, it was, right?
It was, yeah.
Like, is that the old man with the child?
Uh,
Freaky. It looked like him in the mirror. It kind of looked like him looking down, like maybe a younger version. But when he turned around, I could see. I was like, yeah, that has to be him. Terrifying. So they are not leaving her alone no matter where she goes.
Well, that's one of the things that the professor says. He says now that she knows the devil knows her.
Right.
Why they want to train her to prep herself, but they can't train. She needs to be training them. They don't need to train her, but they
Amen. In fact,
they're gonna go and lose everything she knew.
I think that was definitely one of the most, like, the better statements in the movie was like, now that you know the devil knows you. But I think since he said that, he's missing the whole point. She doesn't really need their training. You either have it or you don't have it. That's what I think. You either know how to fight the possession and the devil or you don't. And there's no amount of slideshow screens and PowerPoints that are gonna change that. It's just not gonna, work. It's like just trying to teach somebody who wants to fly a plane, to fly a plane when they don't have the knowledge of what it takes to fly a plane.
You can't teach people faith. Either you believe or you don't believe.
You cannot teach people faith.
And to me, that was my whole issue, is the whole they all had this belief that things were going to be inevitable, right? Oh, they're terminal. Right there, it's like, well, why are you in the business of being a priest if you have no faith? Again, I haven't been to church since churches were invented, and I have more faith than you have, right? I just didn't understand it. And I was thinking the same thing at the end. I thought it was really, it's interesting. That was an interesting concept, right? Because when I first saw the title "Pray to the Devil," even though it's Prey, in my mind I was thinking Pray. Right. So I was watching, I started to watch the movie, and I was thinking, oh, are they going to get so desperate they're going to end up praying to the devil? But turns out, like I said, that the devil wanted her for whatever reason, and he's not going to give up. So he's going to keep bouncing from body to body and following her around. And I think you're right. It set it up great for part 2. And I did like that aspect of it. And that's why I'm like, can we just move on with her? Can we just leave the church, the priests behind? Let's just let her go out into the world and start like working on people, because that old stuff is just, we've seen it too many times. It's ineffective. It makes no sense. I think that she'd have better luck, except putting an ad in the, sending out a TikTok, if you've got somebody possessed, send them to me. She's gonna do far more than any of them are gonna do.
Yeah, and I think her knowing as a child, or sensing as a child, that her mother wouldn't really hurt her, and I believe that she sensed as a child it was a possession and not just schizophrenia, or not schizophrenia at all, but a possession, is why she was chosen, was why the devil does want her, because she had faith from that young age.
Oh yeah, she was praying.
She was praying, right? She knew at that young age. So I think that's why she's wanted so badly, and that's why she's a chosen one. These people have chose the religion, or it didn't choose them.
Right.
She was just gifted with that. And I think that goes for a lot of things in life. You're chosen for something, you're gifted for something, and they were not it. So they're trying to teach it from an aspect that, of desire, not of being gifted with that from a higher power.
And listen, I think there's a place for those priests. It's just they should not be doing
right. Oh, absolutely, 1000%.
Yeah. I don't mean, I'm not bashing priests. Like, go on with the Sunday mass. I'm all for it. But stop with the vial of holy water going into rooms when you are scared.
And I think if they have a part 2, I just hope it's not a repetition of what we've seen, right? Because they did add some interesting things here. I would still like to see the psychiatrist's point of view, or see how she would play into a part 2, see how that would twist things up. But I don't want to go back to her becoming the person who performs the exorcisms and still using, a 2-ounce vial of holy water. Like, I hope if there's a part 2, I just hope they change it and add something different.
Right.
I agree. This is if she was the first female exorcists, they said, in how many years, hundreds of years, or whatever they said it was?
700.
700 years. Okay, so 700 years, shit's been failing. Don't do what they have taught you.
Right.
They haven't taught you anything you need to know. Go out and teach a whole new group of
Right.
fighters, you know. So you don't have people getting, depossessed and killing themselves because they have survivor guilt. That just was so frustrating and made no sense at all.
Right. Yeah, none.
But I did I was gonna say the one last thing I did want to say about that final scene, which I thought was really good too, is that's an example of a scene we've seen in 100 movies and it's still effective.
Yes.
Which is the one person in the crowd who's focusing on you, all this movement around, and you look over and somebody's staring at you and they're scary looking. We've seen that in just about every horror movie. It always works and they still made it effective. And I think that shows that there's still potential there, but you really have to nail it. And they nailed that. They definitely nailed it.
Yeah.
They really, that was a great ending.
Yeah, was a great ending. I'm glad the ending wasn't disappointing. I mean, the plot has been done to death. And if you're going to do it, you're going to have to be a little more creative than what they were. So there's a lot of jump scares that I love. There's a lot of the plot that, I don't know if anybody has come up with a more creative way to do the possession and the devil. I mean, it is basically the same thing, but the acting was great. The jump scares were really good. A lot of it was predictable. Nobody knows what to do at the last minute. Everybody comes in with a little vial of holy water and, they're just waving it around, probably missing altogether the person that they're aiming at. But I love the ending. The ending to me kind of made me overlook a lot of the middle stuff and the jump scares.
All right. Is there anything else you want to talk about? The only thing I will mention, we talked about the mom. The mom did end up dying. She committed suicide, supposedly trying to protect her daughter. So I'm not sure exactly. Maybe the devil wanted her to harm her daughter because I think she had a knife or something, and maybe she took her own life instead. But that's what happened actually to mom.
To that point, when the psychiatrist was saying your mom had schizophrenia, how do you know? You didn't know her mother.
Right.
You died, after she died, you diagnosed her. So that all sounded like nonsense. But yeah.
It's a lack of faith. That they didn't even consider it to be a possibility. So
What do you mean? Didn't consider what to be a possibility?
They didn't consider it to be a possibility that she could be possessed. They were just like schizophrenia. But to Nunya's point, like, how do they know that she died? What were they going by? Somebody else's, documentation, if she had any. I don't know. But why did they just dismiss the fact that she was possessed or could possibly been possessed?
I wonder if, and I don't know how, I've never been to a therapist, but I wonder if when you go to a therapist, they are provided some information if you're a nun or priest, because what she did say was your mom was schizophrenic, and Annie said, yeah, she was later diagnosed as that. So maybe there's information that they're provided to the psychiatrist for those therapy sessions. I don't know.
Could be.
That's she said it, but I'm not sure.
Or they may have just went by what she said, like my mother killed herself and this is what she was always doing. And they may have just said those are the actions of a schizophrenic person. So they do kind of like throw it out there and let you, figure it out yourself, how they came to that conclusion.
The reason I was excited initially about going down the schizophrenic route was because we all have heard stories of mothers in particular killing their young children and later saying that their children were possessed. So were those kids possessed and the mother had the right to kill the child? Because that's what a mother would do if she really thought, that's what it seems like that happens. And so I was really curious to see how that goes. And I think this movie has potential. Like I said, I like the fact if they can leave all the dogma behind them, all of those, all the same stuff behind and move forward in a new direction, I think it has so much potential, but I don't know if they're going to end up doing that.
I don't know.
All right, you guys want to rate it?
Yeah.
All
I'll
right.
give it a, I'll start. I'll give it a 2.5. Like I said, for me, it did have some good jump scares. I think there was an attempt to try to take it in a new direction, and I appreciated that very much. I thought the acting was good. The downside was, the special effects, the makeup, it was all kind of been there, done that a million times, and some of it felt very repetitive. So, not bad, not good, middle of the road for me. So
I'm gonna give it a 3.5 because I really liked the acting. The jump scares were everything for me. I mean, I was absolutely terrified. I literally, when I tell you I paused it, put the lights on, I did. That man, like the blood filling up slowly, and I'm like, she doesn't notice that what's happening, like his back starting to burn just from the water. Like every little section of that episode, that scene was terrifying for me, absolutely terrifying. I paused it, put the lights on, and then I rewound it so I could sit and watch it all with the lights on. I was terrified. It was far more terrifying than her crab walking up the wall, which I also, by the way, found terrifying and was glad the lights were on. I'm gonna do 3.5. The ending made it like that much more. I probably would have given it a 3 had it ended a different way, or maybe even less if it was a disappointing ending, but it was a great ending. Like it's not over for her. And I think we kind of know that it's never over for them, but I do like how they ended it. I was glad that she finally got some validation for her gift. I'm going to call it a gift. I'm glad that she was going to the Vatican, and I'm happy that before she even leaves, something is happening. So that was 2022, was it? The movie. So it's probably due to come out like part 2, maybe in this year or the next year or so. And I'll be excited to see it.
All right. I'm going to give it a 3. I think, I know that's not middle of the road, but I think it was middle of the road to me. Like, I thought it was good. I thought there was definitely some really good jump scares. I like the twists on some things, the relationship between Annie and Natalie. I like the introduction of the psychiatrist and the teachings. And there was definitely I think I said the jump scares, definitely some jump scares in there. So I think they did a good job with it. I would be excited to see a part 2, provided it doesn't repeat everything we've talked about. And because she was the first, there should be a lot of firsts in part 2, if there is such a thing. So yeah, definitely a solid 3. I would definitely recommend the movie. We broke it down, but when you're watching it the first time and you're not really as critical, you will definitely enjoy the movie.
Definitely enjoy it. I did enjoy it more the first time, not watching it as a critic, but yeah, it's worth seeing. Totally worth seeing.
yeah, I'd agree with that. If you like this kind of genre, you'll enjoy it.
For sure.
If I hadn't watched 100 of them already, I would have enjoyed it. I just have seen so many that I'm just kind of over it. But that's part of the job that we're doing here.
Yeah, it's funny though, right? They never stop. There will always be some. And it's funny because you just wonder, will it ever stop? Will there become a point where they don't do any more of these?
Yes, there will
We
be.
Probably not. They're gonna beat it because there's always gonna be a new generation of people who haven't seen as many as us and who want to see them, and there's gonna be people who've never seen The Exorcist. There's gonna be.
And I think that's why you're going to see less and less. Because for us, The Exorcist was the defining horror movie of like 2 generations.
Yeah, true story.
But the younger crowd, they didn't flock to The Exorcist Believer and the other movies that I thought were going to be blockbusters. I think that and also people are far less religious than they used to be. I mean, there's no question, So I think that this is going to be increasingly meaningless to new generations because they're not going to have grown up with hell, fire, and brimstone and hellfire like we did. And so all of that stuff's very internalized for us, but I don't think it has the same oomph, similar to, werewolf movies was like the thing when I was a kid. When's the last time you saw a werewolf movie?
or wouldn't want to see one, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, Wolfman was out recently. I'm gonna check that out.
There was actually a Wolfman that was out recently, and I do want to see it actually.
I want to see it. I think it might be on one of these apps for free.
Okay. My puppy wants to go outside, so I'm gonna have to say goodbye, guys.
Sounds ladies. Well, this is Girls Talk 9.0. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Lady Hollow. That's Nunya and my girl Sunchild. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye.
Bye.